Hey everyone, welcome back to AK Academy and AK Expenses Tracker. So right now we are going to create the function that will actually insert, and we are going to put all what you have learned together into this function. So the same way we have done with wallets, we are not going to create insert wallet and update wallet. What we are going to create an upsert, which is the same function that will do the update and the insert at the same time. So we will create on the Azure Functions, add a new Azure function, and I will call this one upsert transaction. Okay. And you need to make sure that you choose HTTP trigger with open API, and we hit add. So this is the default shape that we usually get, which is great. So the spell checker here doesn't like the word absurd, so I'm telling it to just ignore it. Okay. So the first thing we need to do is to inject some services, right? So like the attachments repository, the way we need the attachments, because we are updating and we are reading and deleting from the attachments. We need the iTransactions repo too, and we need the validator of the DTO, so iValidator, which is from the Fluent validation, iValidator of transaction DTO, right? And here we say validator, and I think that's all what we need. So right now we select those three, we add them to the we need to select add parameters. Okay, let's make them vertically, line by line. Okay, here we go. That's good. So we're going to get back to this at the end. So right now we need to say that this function, it's basically put, because it inserts or update. So it doesn't make sense to have it post. So let's have it as a put. That's great. So let's change this to absurd transaction function triggered. That's good. Okay, we don't need this name here, and we just need to read from the body, and the object that we are going to get is deserialize. I'm going to use the JSON serializer from the system.text.json. So let me remove the Newtonsoft like that and say JSON serializer.deserialize of type transaction DTO like this. Let's use system.text.json. Okay, that's good. So this is it. Right now we have the data, and if this data contains an ID, so that means we are updating, but if it's not, then we are inserting. So let's say here var is update equals string.isNull or whitespace data.id. Sorry, if it's not null. So if it's not null, then it's update, otherwise it is edit. And here I say if is update, else. So here, that's what we will be doing 2 videos from now. Implement the update logic. So here, the first thing that we need to do actually is to validate the input that we have. So let's use the validation result equals validator.validate data, and then we check if validation result dot is valid, and then if it is like that, if it is not valid, then we return new bad request object, and we say here API, new API error response. I think it was something like that. Yep, this is it. So, and here we say invalid data, and we are going to return just the messages that we got from the server. So from the e.error message. Yep, something like that. Most of the stuff will be improved. We are going to remove this repeated code later, but for now we just going to have it like that, which is good. After we validate the result, we are going to check for the wallet. We need to make sure that the wallet is existing and the wallet passed by the user is actually owned by the user himself. So we're going to say wallet await transactions. Then we need to add the wallets repo to private read only iWallets repo wallets repo, then add it like that. And here we say wallets repo dot get by ID data dot wallet ID. Then right now here we try to make sure that get by wallet ID, we need the user ID. Sorry, we need to extract the user ID from the token. So for now, as we agreed in the development process, we say user ID only for the development. Then we are going to make that fetch from the token after we finish the delete, update, and list of the transactions. Then we are going to implement the authentication. So here we pass the user ID, and yeah, right now we are good. So we need to do check if wallet equals to null. Then what we do, sorry, I don't need all of this. And here I'm going to say wallet not found. That's good. Okay, great. So right now we made sure that the wallet is good and we validate the input. The wallet is actually, this is the right wallet we are going to use. The third thing is to check for the attachments. We are going to make sure that the user uploaded an attachments, and if the user uploaded them, we need to include those attachments in the transaction object that we are going to create and remove those attachments from the transaction container in the database. Only from the attachments container in the database, just the reference, while the blob will stay and then the URL will live in the transaction item document in the cosmosdb. So let's first create a variable, memorable attachment. I'm going to say attachments. So the user submits a list of URLs. We have already implemented in the previous video, sorry, not exactly the previous one, get by URLs async. So that's the method we are going to use here. So we will check if data.attachments is not null and actually contains any. Okay, Copilot is helping me very well here, but you're going to say get by URLs async. So here we go. This one will retrieve a list of here we need to add this using. Great. So what this one is retrieving is an enumerable of attachments, and what this one is retrieving, oh sorry, we have added the wrong namespace here. System.net.mail. Okay, that's interesting. We don't need that. And if we go to, we need this system.net, but we don't need the system.net. Yeah, our model. Okay, here we go. So right now we have attachments. So if the user submitted like two attachments, two URLs, whatever they are, like first URL and the second URL, those URL must be in the container. If they are not in the container both, then something is wrong, right? Like he either waited more than 6 hours to submit this data, or he is, or the user maybe is manipulating this request in some way by using Postman or something like that. So we need to ensure that the attachments retrieved are actually equal to the attachments submitted by to the attachments found in the database. So we're going to type here data.attachments. The attachments is the DTO. I'm going to say .distinct, so that if there is a repeatable value, we are going to make sure that they are just the same, are equals. If they are not equal, to attachments dot count, the result that we got, that means there is something wrong with the attachments. And here, of course, we need distinct dot count, like that. So if it is like that, then we return a new bad request object result, invalid attachments. It can be someone increasing, we can detect what's going wrong, because here we have this list that's coming from the database and the URL that's submitted by the users, but it's enough to say that invalid attachments. The last thing right now is to basically create the transaction object. So we are going to type var transaction. So right now in our validation, it's time to actually create some transaction. As we have said, we put the transaction, we cannot create a transaction like this way the Copilot suggested, because we already put the logic of the creation inside the transaction model itself using the create method. So right now we have more control over the creation and all the properties are private. So we need to create it using this one, which is much better, more readable. So we say transaction.create, and the first thing it takes is the wallet ID. That's good. So wallet.id, great. Now the second parameter is the user ID, then the amount, okay, which is data.amount, then the category, data.category is income, data.isIncome, and here we have description, we have tags submitted by the user, and we have attachments, which are strings. Those must be the URL, so they are attachments. We use this nullable operator, then we say select attachment.url like that, and go to array in case they are found, because they can be null if the user doesn't submit any attachment. So in this way, we have right now a transaction object, right? Building it like this is much better than building it using the properties, because usually we have more properties than those to be used, but those are actually one that we need to create transactions. So right now we can add this transaction to the database and say add transactions repo. Okay, create async, sorry. That's a great. It takes the transaction and submitted that to the database. So this is the full process. This is all what we need to do. The one thing that is remaining to be done is in the wallet, we have the balance of the wallet, and every time we retrieve the balance, we don't basically go and query all the incomes and like do some sum and mathematical operations to calculate it, because that will be expensive and will be not very performant. So every time we add a transaction, we update the balance of property, and that's why we have created the method update balance async that updates the balance inside a wallet. So it basically increment that using transaction patches in cosmosdb. So that's going to be very simple. All what you have to do is first, if it's expense, then the balance must be reduced. So we need to we create a new variable here. You'll call it amount to add to the balance. That means, but if it is income, then it is the data.amount as it is. But if it's expense, then it's minus data.amount. So that it means it will decrease the amount in the balance of the wallet. So right now we say wallets repo.update balance async, and we pass the wallet.id, the user ID, and the amount to add, which is amount to add, just like that. So what is this one? Is what to do basically. Sorry, we need to turn this into double. We forgot to do that in the previous video. So let me do that. Okay, that's good. That should be good right now. Great. So this is it. This is all what we have to do. Also here, should we do that? Double, and we need to make it double here too. Oof. Okay, great. So let me remove this, and this is the full flow. So right now we are ready to test that, but before, let's return. I'm going to return the same DTO that we received from the user, but I will populate the ID property with the transaction.id, because this transaction is not available initially. Right now it's available. We retrieve that to the client, so the client gets the same object that being submitted, but the ID property is being populated. And right now we say new, okay, object result. We say here new API success response, and it is transaction DTO. And we pass here a message, transaction created. And we have here the data, which is, as we have said, the same object being passed. So for the update here, just to satisfy, we need to return something. I'm going to say, okay, result. So only return 200 for the moment. We're going to implement that in 2 videos. What we do have right now, this logic is great. We have only one little thing that we need to take care of, which is this thing. So here we create, then we update. Basically, because we are using Azure Cosmos DB, we need here to make sure that those 2 operations must either they pass together or they fail together. Like if there is if this operation submitted and this one failed, this one must be rolled back. And if this one succeeded, this one must succeed. Otherwise, they either both pass or they both fail. In Cosmos DB, we don't actually have across containers transactions. So if they are both in the same container, we could have just used the same transaction patch we have used here to do some increments and stuff like this. But because we don't have this capability, these transactions in Azure Cosmos DB must be happen inside the same container and inside the same partition key too, logical partition. So what we'll be doing right now, we're keeping it like this. But later we're going to discover a very advanced topic in Azure Cosmos DB called the change feed, and using that we are going to use it to ensure the consistency of the data across the containers. Basically, the change feed allows you, whenever an operation happened here, we listen to that change and then we go update this, but like separately on a separate process. Another thing we can do is run a function from time to time that do calculate all the amount of the transactions and update the balance. So in this case, we are 100% sure that our data is always consistent, because if the user like has transactions, 20 transactions, each one is 100, the total must be 2000, right? But then another one has been added, but it failed here for some reason, like network failure at this moment. So the wallet balance will say it is 2000, while in reality it is 2100. So that's why you always have to make sure that your data is consistent. Great, that's all that you have to do. Right now I think we are ready to run the function. So make sure that you run the function, you have Postman up and running, and you have the Azure Cosmos DB emulator also running. So I have the Cosmos DB here. Let's open this one. Expenses tracker DB, that's great. So we have the attachments, transactions, wallet. First I will insert one without transaction. I'll put a breakpoint just to see what will happen, like that. I'll open Postman. Okay, here we have list user wallets. Let's execute this because we need the ID of the wallet, of course. So I will take my wallet USD. Okay, I'll take this. This one has some balance already, 929. And then I have created this here just to save some time, insert a transaction. So I have a very cool transaction here called buy some junk food. For this one, let me remove this attachment. And is income false? It's an expense. This is the wallet ID. Let's add a wallet ID. And description. We have a description. We have added some tags. We have the category, the amount, and the wallet ID. That's all what we need to do. Let's click send. And wait a bit, we got 404. Interesting. So let's see what is wrong. So it is absurd transaction. Okay, let me copy this just to make sure. Sorry, this one is paused. We need to make it pod. Okay, that's good. Save and hit send again. Here we go. We got the breakpoint hit. So interesting. Our data is all empty. Okay, that's simply because we need to say here new serializer option. We can apply that. case insensitive. Yes. Okay, when you say it's case insensitive, it doesn't care, or you need to add the JSON property name here, but also you can set this generally. Okay. Great, let's hit send one more time. We got the data, we open, here we go. We got all of them, the amount, the date and time, of course, this being populated from the server, ID is null, is income, and we have 4 tags. Okay, let's move step by step. So the first, it will validate the object. The object is valid. When it's going to be invalid, let's see if we open the validator transaction. So the amount cannot be negative, wallet is required, category is required, and date time either must be null or it must be in the past. It cannot be in the future. Okay, now let's continue. Continue on this. It's valid, so right now it's trying to get the wallet by ID. Here we go, find the wallet. The wallet is not null, no attachments, so it should skip this part, that's right. Now try to create transaction object. Okay, we have this transaction object, ID must be populated, that's right. And right now create async. This one should add this to the database, which is right. The operation has been added. That's so great. Amount to add, it is minus 7.9 to the wallet because it's an expense. Okay, this is the interesting property that will update only the balance property inside the... If I open the wallets, a new SQL query, and I will search for where c.id equals this, and if I hit execute query, this is what you're going to see. Notice the balance. So right now, if we execute this, and then we try to fetch again, you're going to see that 7.9 has been decreased from this balance, and only this property has been updated. The rest of the properties stayed the same. Right now we have ID has been returned to the client, and that's so good. That's so good. Our function works perfectly, and it does all the steps that it should do. As expected, everything is working great. Right now we are going to implement update and delete. Those are just same like those, nothing very interesting. For the delete, we're just going to delete the we need to delete the attachment in case there is any. We need to delete the transaction, and then we need to increase or decrease the wallet balance to retrieve it back to where it was before the insertion of this. For the update, also the same. We need to calculate some differences, but at the end they are all the same. For now, this is the process of the creation. I hope you got all the ideas that we have here, and of course, as usual, if you have any questions, just put them in the comment section below. I'm going to answer them as quickly as possible. I hope you are enjoying this. So thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next video.